for that. My name's Mark Simpson. I'm your host today. I'm delighted to be here to host this 𝗬𝗣𝗘𝗥𝗦 business webinar. And the reason I've been chosen is because I'm a frustrated sports reporter. I've been reporting on news for 30 odd years, but my main aim in life is one day to be a sports reporter. And what team is better to talk about them at the moment than the one that's making all the headlines, and that is Warrenpoint Town. They started off as a pub team. They're now in the Premiership. They've been going for 30 odd years. That's almost twice or half my age. And I'm delighted that we have a number of people that are going to talk about sport in general and Warrenpoint Town in particular, starting with the club chairman, Connaire McGreevy. Afternoon, Connaire.
Afternoon, Mark. Thanks very much for having myself and everyone else on this panel today. It's very exciting to be here.
And thank you for unmuting your microphone. Clubs can't survive without two things: community support and commercial support. And it's good that we have with us this afternoon Warrenpoint Town's biggest sponsor, Brian Reid, Chief Executive and co-founder of DELI Lights Ireland Limited. Afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon, Mark. Thanks for having me. Delighted to be here.
And you unmuted your mic just as I spoke. Fair play to you. Also, we have Warrenpoint's finest ever general manager. We have Aoife Downey. Big match tomorrow, Glentoran at home.
Yes, we have a big match against the Dirty Glens. Can't wait.
I live quite near the Oval, so here in North Down, I'm very happy to hear you say that. None of my friends ever supported Glentoran. I hope you get a big win tomorrow. And of course, you slaughtered Linfield recently, 2-1, I think the score was, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit more. But why are they performing so well? Maybe our other guest will know. Paul Johnston, former general manager of Dundalk FC and now executive technical director at STATSports. It is, of course, a 𝗬𝗣𝗘𝗏 business which has been working in recent years with some of the biggest names in sport, not just on the island of Ireland, but globally. Paul Johnston, I suppose this is a business for you, but are you a sports fan as well? Have you a particular team that you follow?
I do, Mark. Yes, yeah, and I'm delighted to be here as well. But yeah, my team, actually, my wee soft spot is Everton. So I do follow Everton, which is tough in the city of Liverpool, which have another big team. But for me, it's Everton and the Blues.
Good on you. Paul, we'll hear from you shortly. And we'll also see a video about the types of teams, including in America and American football teams that you work with. But first, I'm going to share a little short video with you. This is a video about another team. Wee Warrenpoint, some people call them, but they're not Wee Warrenpoint anymore. They're a big club. And let's look at their recent history.
Nice touch by Dylan. Now to Sullivan. On the overlap. Flag stays down. McCaffrey's in the middle. So too is Dylan. It's back to Dylan. It's 2-1 to Warrenpoint. Clinical on the counter-attack from the homes.
So there we go, that a famous win in November. Connaire, I'm sure you could watch that all afternoon, but we're going to talk about business as well as sport today. I suppose you couldn't do any of this without a bit of cash from outside of the club. Tell us a little bit about how you've been able to survive financially to start off with.
Yeah, well, I suppose business and sport go hand in hand for myself. I see business as, you know, you're going up against your competitors and you're trying to win off the field, and sport is very similar. You've got your competitors being your competition in the leagues and competitions, and you're going up against them on the field. And certainly Warrenpoint Town, we've been very lucky and very grateful to sponsors like DELI Lights, you know, STATSports, 𝗦𝗣𝗘𝗥𝗦, AJ Plumbing, you know, so many from them. I can't name them all, but there's an awful lot of them. And, you know, what they do for us is very, very much valued by us, because it enables us to grow our football business as such.
Well, if anyone else has a question, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, you should have a Q&A facility. So please keep the questions coming. We realize that we can't be together today, so we're going to try and keep this as interactive as possible. If you want to put a comment in there as well, or a question, I will put it to our guests. And Connaire McGreevy, if anybody is watching that is maybe even thinking of trying to sponsor you, or maybe even get the naming rights to your stadium, which I know that you're hoping to redevelop, what's in it for them?
Well, I suppose the first thing is, you know, every business needs to get attention in terms of attracting customers, and football is a way of doing that. If you look at the, you know, open up the paper, you've got the front page news, and most of us don't want to be on the front page news because that's usually bad news. Then you come in, you've got the community news maybe, and, you know, Warrenpoint Town can do that for a business. You then go in, you've got maybe, you know, the back pages. Well, to get in the back pages, you need sport, but to have your brand associated with it, you know, you get the photographs there, and some great photographers, and we saw it in the video there. You know, there's a lot of people paying attention to, I suppose, the Northern Ireland Football League now, and Irish League football. Football itself is probably the fastest growing sport now in Northern Ireland, and it's still, you know, a fifth of people in the Republic of Ireland play football. So it's a great opportunity for people to raise the profile of their business, bit of community engagement as well. And for me, I suppose, as a business person, I've actually got a lot of network and connections through it, and a lot of people I do business with now happen to come from a football background themselves.
And I suppose with money comes pressure. You know, when DELI Lights goes onto your shirts, they'll be expecting you to win, maybe get into Europe in the near future. Is that possible?
Absolutely. I mean, we're going for our first UEFA license this season, because that's the ambitions of the club, to get in the European competitions, and I think very much so it's achievable for us. And we're building that off the ground, and, you know, the likes of Brian and DELI Lights coming on board, they're winning businesses, they're winning contracts. Only last week they're announcing big deals with Boots and other big organizations, and, you know, they're on our shirts and they want to see us win, so it's a win-win for everyone.
Well, we've had a question in on this. It's a similar question to the one I've just asked, but more specific. It's probably a better question, and this person would know how to unmute their mic. What's the #1 future ambition for Warrenpoint Town? What's the #1 ambition, and how far can you go?
I think we can go all the way, to be honest with you, in a sustainable manner. It's about making sure that the foundation's right and not be pushing too far ahead of ourselves at any one time. It's about, you know, building the blocks one by one. I think we're doing that. I mean, Aoife's on this panel, and sure she'll talk about sort of future ambitions that the club have. There's no one thing that's going to do it. It's lots of little things coming together to make it great.
Aoife, afternoon again to you. This is a tricky question, good one to start off with. Niall's posed this one. Just in terms of advertisers, have you had to strategically change your advertising since COVID, considering there are no fans at the stadium? I suppose it's a general question in terms of the challenges of the pandemic and what we're only in 11 minutes and we're talking about it already, but has it been tricky the last months or year or so now?
Yeah, we've obviously had to change because we don't have any footfall coming across the gate. But we do have initiatives like live streaming of matches, which actually can provide a bigger reach for our sponsors commercially. So it means that you could actually be getting more people, like your business will be out there to more people. So we have had the pandemic's obviously affected us, but I think it could have been a positive for us because you've got your stream sponsor as well as the sponsor like our everyday sponsors. So we have match day sponsors now, so they get their name out in the stream straight away as well, which has been good for us. It's kind of provided more opportunity for sponsors for us, I think.
Yeah, there's actually even an argument that there's an upside in all of it, dare I say it, and through such tragic circumstances, because maybe more people are actually seeing your matches now because they are being streamed.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people who maybe couldn't get out of the house before or couldn't travel to our games have easier access to it. And some people who maybe are just interested in the Irish League.
Mm-hmm. Bit warmer as well.
Drier as well, yeah.
It looks very wet and damp outside your window there. Is it just me, or is it raining in Warrenpoint today?
Well, I'm in Uri and it's really bad.
Brian, Reid, where are you, and what's the weather like, and what's business like?
I'm in Warrenpoint and it's lashing outside, so I'm getting worried about the game tomorrow. But how's business? Business is good. Looking at the positives, it's been a difficult year, but you have to look at the positives, and you just have to work our way through the issues that are presenting themselves in front of us. But yeah, business is actually good, and we're really ready to bounce back from COVID-19.
And when you put some money into the club, is it doing something for your local community, or is it an investment?
Well, there was three real reasons why we got involved in Warrenpoint. The first reason was from an ambition point of view. When I got in around the club as a volunteer coach, I quickly recognised there was an ambition within the club to go on and do better things. Barry's a very ambitious manager, and just being around him and around the other directors in the club, I got a sense of these guys want to go places. So that sort of inspired me from a personal point of view, and then also from a business perspective. So we wanted to align the business with ambitious other community organisations, and the Point Club in general is very ambitious. So that was the first thing. The second thing would have been about the community. You know, as a business in the area employing a lot of people, just getting involved in a community organisation or a club that wanted to do something and achieve something meant a lot to us. And that was something that we didn't have to think an awful lot about. When Barry asked me at the time when I got involved to be associate sponsor, it was a no-brainer for me. We were on the jerseys the year we got promoted into the Premiership. But it also was I was proud to be a sponsor, because to come up through the leagues the way we did so quickly, and the guys that played football and were around the club at that time done fantastic things. So just to be able to be a sponsor involved in that locally is a huge thing for us. And the third thing, so the community aspect is massive. I mean, it's massive. There's a massive ethos of the company. We're a community business, so the local community has supported DELI for 25 years now. So we want to give something back, and we've seen that through COVID. And the third point was branding. It was really the last of my points would have been about branding. It was never really a commercial thing for me, but it grew into that because we're an all-Ireland business. So it grew into a branding opportunity as well. So we're on the front of the jerseys, we're on the cameras at live games, if there is live games, or we're back pages for the right reasons and the wrong reasons at times. But it's been a really good journey for us, and I'm excited about the future.
Is there any way for a businessman or woman to quantify how much bang they're getting for their buck, you know, when you get naming rights or when your name goes on a shirt?
You can never measure how much you get out of it, but you have to go up onto our 3G and watch the kids getting coached. You know, see the joy that it brings to our young academy teams playing every week in, week out in academy leagues. That's what you get back, and you see in the team on the TV, seeing the team in the papers, you see your brand associated with that. Trying to achieve the underdog status is something that we've always been at Warrenpoint, and we're continuing to be the underdogs, and that's actually a good thing because you're up against it. And why not get in as a business early to a club that is going places rather than somebody's already at the top? We want to go to the top, so now's the time to get in. And it's cheap branding, cheap advertising as well, because we're not an expensive club to get involved with, but there is significant opportunities to get on the bus now in terms of bang for your buck.
Connor's smiling there when he says that it's quite cheap. Connor?
Yeah, I just have to have a wee chat with Brian about his next season sponsorship going up 20%.
Mickey McGiver doesn't listen to this.
What about the DELI Lights Stadium? What about that for an idea?
I keep mentioning it, but they won't just bite at it. They're looking for somebody else. But that's another opportunity. It is. I mean, we're the main sponsor at the minute, but I've always said to the guys, as a director of the club, like, we'll stand back if somebody else wants to take that on and run with that. We're just proud to be associated with the club and what they're doing. So there is a naming opportunity there for the stadium, definitely. And it's something that would be, you know, well spoke about in terms of BBC. You're on the radio every week, and coming from the whatever stadium it was named for a while there, but we've no name at the minute. It's Milltown, but yeah, it's an opportunity. It's definitely a commercial opportunity.
And you know, on this island, we're very community orientated and everybody knows everybody else. But if somebody isn't into sport, but sees sport as a chance to actually make a bit of a few quid in terms of getting name recognition or whatever, can they do that without the emotional attachment that, Brian, you clearly have to Warrenpoint?
Absolutely. I mean, there's people sponsor the club at the moment that aren't anything to do with the club, don't even watch games. But, you know, there are thousands of fans come to the big games at Milltown whenever fans are allowed in, or as Aoife said, streaming opportunities. That you don't have to be involved in football. I love football, and that's probably one of the reasons why I get so heavily involved. But you don't have to be involved in football to get involved in sponsorship. I mean, the jerseys are there. They're played week in, week out. Kids are wearing them all around the towns, and with our commercial side of things, and our shop's going really well. So you don't have to be a football fan to get involved in sponsorship. No, definitely not.
We've talked about the commercial side. Let's talk about the community side. Para and I have got involved in the area. Let me show you quickly one of their recent videos about a sport they're involved in, hurling.
It's in our DNA, the blood pumping through our veins, the air we breathe, the water we drink. This hurling group has been at the heart of Camelot from 1989, and numerous families have come up through the ranks.
I enjoy hurling because it's a good sport, and it's good because it's full of teamwork, and I get to see my friends and good crack.
Like all clubs, we're under severe financial constraints. The £1,000 for brighter communities is essential to help us grow the club and buy new equipment.
As a PARA customer, I'm delighted to see that PARA are supporting our local hurling club, and it's great for the kids to be involved, make friends, that become lifelong friends.
Brian, what about that aspect of things?
I think that's fantastic. I think it's a brilliant thing for large organisations to get involved in community things, and the brand association with and being part of your local community, it builds trust, it builds everything, attachment, the stickiness that comes with being attached to clubs like, and we don't just sponsor Warrenpoint Town, we've Gaelic clubs and stuff that we sponsor. So I'm a big fan of that, and I think it's something that all clubs need a lifeline at the minute. There's so many clubs struggling in all sports. They need help. They need commercial help to keep going. And through COVID-19, there's big cries for sport to come back for kids. Kids need sport. Young people need sport, not just kids. Our underage teams, under 20s, reserve teams, whatever, they all need to get back playing football. So if large clubs can come in and support that and get us bouncing back quickly, I'm a massive fan of that.
And if a businessman or woman comes to you and is thinking of investing in your club, they're going to want to know what you're doing, how ambitious you are, not just at a football level, but at a grassroots level. What would you say to them?
Well, we have big plans for the club. At the minute, we're trying to develop a women's and girls team. So starting from grassroots the whole way up to hopefully Premiership level. We are very committed to the community, as Brian has already mentioned, for community development, but we're also committed to developing young people. So both as footballers, but off the field as well, into their lives. We want to develop young professionals and give them life skills. We're very committed to opening up an academy education system to give people opportunities to, while they're playing football, they can still get recognised qualifications. And as the grassroots football leader for Newry Morning Town, I would love to see a grassroots hub at Warrenpoint. I think it's being the only Premiership club in the local area, I think it really would be a no-brainer to have the hub situated there and to build grassroots throughout the community from there.
Well, there's a lot of love for the club on the question and answer. An anonymous attendee says, we have our sign, I assume that's at Milltown. it's at the ground. And I've noticed more people using our business since. We have also been getting people from further afield, such as Dundalk, Banbridge, and even as far as Coleraine, all from football backgrounds because of that brand recognition. And we've got Neil Coleman from NIFL, the Northern Ireland Football League. He says it's been a pleasure working with Aoife, Conor and Brian as they continue to drive the club forward. Looking forward to seeing the continued growth of the club in the coming years. Conor, everybody seems to like Warrenpoint Town.
Indeed, we Warrenpoint. I wouldn't say everyone likes us, Mark, but there always has to be a wee bit of friendly competition. We'll call it that. No, it's good. I mean, some of those comments are nice to hear. It's just unfortunate, I suppose, during COVID that networking of fans coming from other parts of Northern Ireland to Warrenpoint every other Saturday just isn't available at the minute. But I mean, those days are ahead of us again. And I'm very excited. You know, I do think we'll see an All-Ireland competition in due course. Not a league, but I think we'll see a competition, and that will bring more people to the local area from across this island. And of course, if we get into Europe, maybe. Now, unfortunately, we won't be able to play in Milltown yet. But there is.
Why is that, out of interest?
It's to do with the ground criteria at UEFA level, and we don't quite qualify. But hopefully, if there's people in position and power listening, that they can maybe help us to make sure that we don't have to go to Seaview. But we're very delighted that Seaview has been offered to us. You know, we have an acquire opportunities here, Mark, in bringing people to it, and people seem to like coming to us. And that's one of the things that we need to do now is grow the fan base, grow that community support through the community outreach officer, through Aoife as a GM, into the schools and things like that.
Actually, Brendan's Galaxy A21s has been on saying, hi Mark, Brendan Curtis here. As a fan base, we are fairly small here in Warrenpoint. What plans does the club have to hopefully grow the fan base?
Well, yeah, I'd clarify the surname there as well. Somebody's called Galaxy A21s. But the community outreach into the schools, I mean, that's what we want. You know, obviously it would have been happening this season. That was the plan, but unfortunately COVID has knocked that in the head for now. But certainly we will be doing that, out there touching with the community in terms of schools, into other organisations. We're in with the Clonrai Disability Action Group, you know, trying to reach as many people as we can across this district to, one, make them feel that Milltown is accessible to them, that they can come and enjoy it. But once they're in, I think this is a problem that we've been tackling now year in, year out, that we're trying to address is, you know, where do people go and how do they feel safe and comfortable and enjoy that environment? One of the things we've applied for is an entertainment alcohol license so that they can come and enjoy that aspect, as well as we're discussing the ability to have like a family stand at the club too.
And you work with STATSports. We're going to bring in Paul Johnston here. But before we do, Paul, this is my last video. I've been dying to show this one. This is just amazing, which shows the global reach of this company from Newry. Wow. Wow. Lots of household names, Paul Johnston. For anybody who doesn't know, tell us what you do for those teams and clubs.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Well, STATSports are a sports performance company. We're based here in Newry. This is our headquarters, you know, and we focus, a lot of people focus on the video, which is the elite side of our business, but we also have a consumer side, which means that players, academy members that Aoife was talking about, anybody like that can grab a unit and use it and compare themselves against these pros. So it's a big deal for us, and that market's open for us over the last couple of years. But at the elite level, we would focus primarily on football. Football would be 70% of our business, but we also cover rugby, we cover NFL, we cover GAA, we do GAA clubs, hockey, Ireland, we do a lot of stuff with them, basketball. So there's a multitude of clubs that we look after, and really what we do, a lot of people would know us, Mark, from the little bumps on the rugby jerseys. I guess that's the easiest way. That's our hardware. That's collecting every movement that the players are making to minute detail, to be perfectly honest. So from that point of view, what we do is we collect that and then we display that and show it back to these elite clubs, and we work with their professionals to make sure the players are looked after. When we talk about business, you know, we all know what an asset is. In our world, players are assets, right? And you want to get the best out of your assets. So we need to manage that asset. We need to bring in KPIs, and we need to do all the stuff that we do in business. So the synergy between business and sports is very, very close. And I know Conor mentioned that as well. And that's what we would see, you know.
And what sort of data information do you get from those little black boxes?
Yeah, there's quite a lot, Mark. I guess the ones that people really know, there's over 100 metrics we would collect, right? Nobody can process 100 metrics, right? There's too much. But when we talk about, you know, max speed of a centre forward, you know, to put it into context, we're lucky enough, PSG are one of our clients, and they've obviously played this week against Barcelona, and we've probably one of the fastest players in the world in 𝗣𝗘𝗟 𝗣𝗘𝗥𝗦, you know, flying up the wing, scoring goals, right? So we will measure max speed of professional footballers, but we will also measure total distance of players. We will measure accelerations, decelerations, sprints. And I guess a lot of stuff is we would measure the intensity that those players go through in a match. You know, it's very hard for us when we're sitting in our couch to contextualize how much exertion that is on a player. Well, our system will provide those scores to these professional people within the clubs.
And have you worked with the best club in the world, Manchester United?
Yeah, we're fortunate there as well, Mark. Yes, yeah. In the Premiership, we've quite a lot of clubs. We've well over 50% of the Premiership. But Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Spurs are all clients of ours. Everton, they're all clients of ours currently, which is great. And we work with them all. But we also work with the associations. We've a long relationship with the Northern Ireland football team, and we've been working with them for a long time. And now the manager is Ian Barraclough, and we work with Ian, previously Michael, and obviously we work with Michael, and we work with Michael at Stoke, and the FAI with Stephen Kenny, you know, and there's a long association there. So we do a lot of stuff in Ireland.
And do you work with the second best team in the world, Warrenpoint Town?
We do, actually, and it's a very important question for us as a company, right? Because the founders here of the company are all local, you know what I mean? Alan's out in Warrenpoint, and Sean is on the Carling Peninsula, quite close, right? So from that point of view, one of the goals of STATSports, we love our elite clients, but we're also based in Newry. We've over 100 people working here, you know.
100 people?
Over 100 people, yes. So it's important for us to support local community, local sports, which is what we're into, and we would do that. Obviously, Warrenpoint, we're delighted to be working with them, and we would also work closely with Dundalk on the other side, you know. So we definitely work with them, and we'll continue to do so and help the guys on their road to their business plans, which is interesting. Listening to Conor and Brian and Aoife, the passion of that, I think, grips everybody, you know, from a local point of view, and that's great to be associated with from a STATSports point of view.
And I suppose that not the hard question, but the local question is, apart from employing people locally, and we can't dismiss that because it looks as if you've got a very large workforce. What, are you doing anything for the local community as well? Is that part of your company policy?
Yeah, it is actually. To be honest, we would work with the colleges as well. You know, we would get out there and work in education, right? We've been to a lot of the schools and in the assembly halls, and similar to what the clubs do. And it's really, really important to be able to, for the kids, the next generation, to understand what we're doing and what football clubs are doing, right? So we would take that point absolutely, and we would give them some experience in regards to some of our sports scientists who are fortunate enough to travel to the Man Uniteds and to the Liverpools and that, and spend a day there with all of these elite players and be able to bring those personalities home here to Newry and other areas around the island of Ireland and go into schools and talk about what it is to be a footballer and what it is to be somebody who works in football, who liaises with some of these athletes, because that's achievable. You know, we're producing phenomenal graduates out of schools here, you know, whether it's Johnston, whether it's DCU, whether it's Southern Regional College, whether it's DKIT in Dundalk, and we're hiring them, and those guys and girls are going out to clubs around the world and getting that experience, and we want them to bring it home then.
Good point. Stay with us, Paul. We're going to go back to the questions. Rob Rossiter has a question. I think I'll throw this open, but maybe Brian, if you could take this one. Hi, I'm coming from a rugby and social enterprise community interest background. Rugby activities for autistic children, plug for 𝗣𝗘𝗘𝗥𝗦. Do the panel think that sports which have a clear social and cross-community value, do they think that that is a more attractive proposition for investment? From Rob Rossiter. Brian?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think whatever you do and whatever you try to do, you have to be authentic about it. So, I mean, doing something as a club just for commercial reasons is not something that I think you want to get involved in, because it just ends up being, you know, it's built on a house of cards. It has to be authentic. And one of the things that Aoife mentioned earlier was about the girls' football. And we want to do that, but we want to do it slowly and build it properly. And I would say the same with Robert's question, that we don't want to take stuff on and do things at the club that we can't sustain, and just to get funding for it, just to get a commercial opportunity. It's short term, and we're very much focused on the longer term here. And I think there are opportunities. We've hosted loads of events. We've hosted youth football. We've hosted different sports days and different things at the club. And Mickey Gray would be very involved in that. He's another director, and something we're very interested in. But it has to. We've only got limited resources as a club. We're very much a volunteer-based club, and you just have to be careful what you take on. But I would just be wary of taking things on for just commercial reasons, to get funding for it, because it's short term.
And speaking of limited resources, what would you say to somebody who was maybe thinking a year ago about putting some money into sponsorship within sport and is now looking at the economic climate and saying, whoa, not now?
I would say do it, but you don't have to do it maybe at the level that you were thinking of doing it. You could do it on a smaller scale. There's match day sponsors, there's small signs around the club, there's even just appearances on some jerseys, kits. But I wouldn't not do it. I would if it was in your gut to do it at that time, go forward, but maybe do it on a reduced level, because young people, as I said, need it coming out of COVID-19. They need football, they need sport. So there's no better way to spend your money in initiatives that promote that in the community.
That's the right answer, isn't it, Aoife?
That was the right answer, Ryan.
I have another question for you from Owen Carraher. How do Warrenpoint Town engage with other sporting codes in the local area, i.e. Gaelic games, rugby, etc., to possibly encourage others to get involved in Warrenpoint Town?
Well, we do engage with other clubs and sports throughout the community. We are in no way would want to encourage someone to leave a sport they already play. We encourage, yes, we encourage cross-sporting activities. So we, like with the likes of Gaelic clubs, because it's quite prominent in the area, we would encourage that the young players of Gaelic teams come and play for us as well, because there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to do both.
And here's a tough question. I'm going to give it to Connor. He's big enough for this one, from Tommy. Sporting question. If Newry City get promoted in the next few years, which is quite possible, could the area sustain 2 Premier League clubs?
Yeah, can't see any reason why it can't. For me, football in this part of the world has maybe been neglected, and it's maybe getting a wee bit more attention now, which is a good thing. And if that happens, then there's definitely a latent fan base out there for football, local football. One of the things that I've noticed through COVID is people are getting more local. They're looking at maybe a local product, buy local, support local, and all the rest of it. And I think some football fans, I mean, as a football fan, you do have your English Premier League team, you might have your Scottish team, your French team, your Italian team, whatever. And I think people are starting to look more at the product, which is Northern Ireland Football League, and saying, right, who's my local team here? And certainly I've noticed over the last few years, more and more people are definitely tuned in to Warrenpoint. And if Newry go up, I've no doubt there's a latent fan base there too, which will come roaring back. So why not? They were both in the Premier League not that long ago.
And the likelihood then of derby matches, as you say, that might build up a bit of rivalry, which can only be good in terms of attendances, etc.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, football is about, you know, your clan, it's your tribe, and you're going out there to win against the other clan or tribe, and that competitive nature comes through, creates a wee bit of fiery atmosphere sometimes, and fences fall down or whatever. But you know, we push on through it, and we'll get. I'd love to see a Newry Warrenpoint Boxing Day derby again, although I'd like to see summer football. So, but we'll call it Boxing Day derby to be sitting on the fence.
I remember fences coming down. I think that's whenever we first talked, but we'll park that one for another day. Please keep your questions coming through. It's really good to be able to engage and actually talk to people. We've all been in our own little bubbles for a while. So even if you've asked a question already, fire a few more at us. Paul Johnston, you know, as someone who is into sport, do you think the kind of the South Armagh, Newry, South Down area could sustain bigger teams?
I believe so, Mark. You know what I mean? Even if you expanded a little bit outside of that, you know, the corridor from Belfast to Dublin, like it's a huge corridor, and Newry and the Chamber and all sit right at the halfway house. You know what I mean? So from that point of view, you know, there's a huge amount of people in this, you know, on the East Coast, both north and south. And I think that Connor's point, and it's very well made, there's a grow, or nearly like there's a hunger for football in this area as well. As much as GAA is very prevalent too, particularly in Down and South Armagh, there's certainly still a huge amount of people playing football. We see it obviously across the water, and thank God that we still have it to watch, right? Because it's the one thing during COVID that we can watch, both the stuff across the water, but also the local streaming, you know what I mean, which has been brilliant. Because I don't know the figures, but I would imagine that people are starting to follow that and look into it. And I know even from my own experience, I spent a lot of time outside of Ireland, you know, in my 20s, and lived overseas for 7, 8 years. That connection to come back, if they were streaming back then, I would have been the first to sign up, because you're constantly looking for something from home, you know what I mean? So the diaspora, it's not just people here, and we're in a virtual world now with COVID, so it's not just the people who are actually here, they obviously need to be catered for, but it's also casting that net outside, you know what I mean, and looking at people overseas and getting them back, right, virtually into the community, even if they physically can't be here.
Feel free to kick the next question straight into touch. Brexit. You mentioned this kind of north-south corridor that the Newry and the South Down area is in. What is business like? Has it been affected at all in recent months, for good or ill?
Yeah. Well, we're probably the same as everybody. You know, we did our due diligence as Brexit was coming down the path. You know what I mean? I think everybody, some of our solution is a hardware solution. Some of it obviously is a software solution. On the hardware side, you know, we've had some delays in shipments and stuff like that, like everybody. But we've been able to cater for that. You know what I mean? So from that point of view, I think our staff here have been really good at looking at Brexit. There's been a lot of support locally that we've reached out to get as well, you know, and so from that point of view, hasn't affected us too much, but we have to keep our eye on it, right? Because it's still quite new.
Just to change the subject, everybody else will be relieved about that. James Mason has a good question. I want to go around all four of you on this, starting with Connor. Summer football, it's been talked about for years. Summer football for the Irish. What do you think? Starting with summer football, it's talked about years. Summer
to try it. No, I can talk all day on that one, but I think we should try it. That's definitely the headline.
Brian?
I would say yes, and I would come at it from the youth perspective, because I've been heavily involved in youth football for a while, and not so much now, but I see the amount of disappointed parents and coaches that travel to games and were called off, kids shivering coming off football pitches in the middle of December and January, kids getting sick from school, games being cancelled, and the feeling that they get on a Friday night to realise that the game on a Saturday has been cancelled, training in conditions that you wouldn't put your rubbish out in. So I think summer football has to be looked at. We don't have the pitches as well. The 3G pitches aren't. Wanted to mention facilities a wee bit as well from the 𝗬𝗍𝗘𝗟 question, but certainly summer football is definitely something that we should give a try to, because I mean we've just had a home game there on Tuesday night, and we're possibly going to be another cancellation tomorrow because of the rains. It's the country we live in. It's just the weather.
Yeah. Aoife, in a sentence, summer football?
Yes, I think in terms of fan base it would be good too, because you've got obviously you've got people who have their other like Premiership teams and stuff, so if you're not necessarily competing with those, say on a winter's afternoon on a Saturday, if you have the choice to watch United or to travel out in the lash and rain to go to Milltown, I think it would be a big plus for the fans.
And Paul?
Yeah, I've been close to this one because obviously in the League of Ireland they play Southern, and when I was GM at Dundalk, that was what was being played and what still is being played. I think to the other side of Brian's, it's very important to look after the kids and that. But on the elite side, I think summer football, when you talk about the elite level, gives us a chance to compete in Europe for those teams that are competing in Europe. And I would always argue that, you know, you're in your season with an elite athlete. It's about momentum. When you're playing in season against some of these European clubs that are not in season, it certainly gives you an advantage. And Dundalk benefited from that, in addition to playing well, but they benefited from that throughout the last couple of years too.
Good point. Jack's making the point back to the question of Newry City coming up. Newry and Warrenpoint played each other in recent years. There were 1,500 at the game, the third highest attended game in the whole of the North that weekend. What about North-South? What about all-island football? Conor, you touched on it earlier. There have been various ventures over the years. Tony Hughes has touched on this as well. You know, do you think it's worth another punt over the years? Tony Hughes has touched on this as well. You know,
we need to explore a cup competition for me, primarily because it's a high-profile competition. It creates something different in terms of the audience appeal, but I also do believe that it can build bridges on this island again. I think that's very, very important. I'm not a fan personally. I'm not a fan of this all island league proposal.
Oh, why not?
I just don't think it's right yet at this minute in time. I think there's too many issues still to be talked around. I mean, European qualification is one thing. European spots, North and South Island, we get them up, those things that we can discuss as a product, and we need to see where that goes.
Brian?
All Ireland League. I think it's a bit early for it. I think it's a good idea, but logistically it could be challenging for a club like Warrenpoint and other clubs in the league that have to travel weeknights and stuff down to Cork or wherever. The logistics bit of it would be challenging for a lot of the clubs in the league in the north. So I think a wee bit early. A longer term is probably where we want to end up. I think it would be better for Irish football in general. I have one team and one league, but it's just we're in the early stages, and I think soccer here is a long way to go, and I think that's where we should be working towards, but at the minute it might be just a wee bit early for it.
And Aoife, there's a question from Jerry Quinn here on recruitment. Is Warrenpoint doing anything to attract more players from the amateur/junior leagues from areas such as Newry, Kilkeel, Newcastle, Banbridge and other surrounding areas?
Well, we are always open to recruitment from all areas. You just have to take a look at our first team to see that we've got a lot of from the other side of the border on the team as well, and we've got we do have local talent. We've got players from Belfast that travel up, so we don't exclude anyone.
Sorry, travel up or travel down? I'm always confused. Travel up from Belfast? I don't know. It's the same with Derry. Do you go up to Derry or down to Derry? Sorry, I interrupted you.
You put me off a train of thought now, so you have, Mark.
Recruitment, you're already getting people from far and wide, you said.
Yeah, so we encourage anyone, if you're interested, there are avenues you can go down. If you take a look on the website, you can access different ways of getting in touch with the club in terms of getting on board with the academy and up through the teams. So we would encourage anyone from any area if you want to come and play with us.
And what are things like at the moment? Because you can't really get out and about as much. And as I think Brian was saying earlier on, I mean, most football isn't allowed at the moment.
Yeah, it isn't allowed. It's only the senior, it's only elite level is allowed to play at the minute, Mark. And that's a real challenge for our youth teams. And I mean, it's positive the fact that we've got football on, but it's put a real dampener on the club, because coaches, volunteers that are coaching our academy teams and our youth teams are on limbo. How do they keep in contact with their players? Some of them's doing Zoom calls, but there's only so many Zoom sessions you can do. So it's been very difficult as a club to communicate the messages that are coming out from government of what we should do and what we shouldn't do from the IFA. And it's been a real challenge, if I'm being honest. And the guys have done a fantastic job. Our COVID officer, Johnny Bird, and Aoife has been heavily involved in it, you know, just trying to keep things safe for the elite, for the senior team, but then also whenever communication needs to be done with our youth teams and our parents who pay subs every month. What do you tell parents? There's no football. So it's challenged the running of the club significantly.
And putting your other hat on, your business hat on, what about the food industry? I mean, we all still need to eat. How's DELI Lights coping with all of this?
DELI Lights has been coping well. I mean, we came through 2009, the financial crisis then, and we learned a lot from it. So we were able to react quite quickly. We went online as a business just before COVID, and we got fantastic support with our online ordering and stuff. And a lot of our customers closed, but we have a big retail part of the business here, and retail stayed open. So the likes of Sainsbury's, Musgraves, people like that are food to go. Only it moved from people shopping in the cities to regional areas. We're doing a lot of shopping. But yeah, our customers closed overnight. The majority of our customers closed, but they're back open again. Take out. We've just adopted on our sandwich bars, adopted quite quickly. You just have to make decisions really quickly and move fast. And we're ready to bounce back now.
You're making me hungry now. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes to go. Paul, while we have you here, you know, we're seen as quite conservative in this part of the world, conservative with a small c. And, you know, the kind of global business that you've helped build up, what would you say to people about how that is possible and maybe for us all to think a lot bigger, particularly in this virtual world that we're now able to enter?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. It really is important to think big. In business, you need to think big, right? It might be your idea from the very start, but it's very important to think big. And if I can use the example of this company, both Alan and Sean, Alan Clark and Sean O'Connor, who are the co-founders, they would have started, you know, looking at the top level of club and trying to get one win. And once you got one win in the world of sport, right, literally, it sort of proliferated out, you know what I mean? So we flipped the business model on its head to go at the top of the pyramid and then come down, you know? And I think there are certain businesses and industries that can do that. Sport is one, you know, because in sport, a lot of it's about endorsements and about referrals and about if you do a good job with Manchester United or Warrenpoint or Dundalk or any club, it works in spades, you know, because it sort of translates into other opportunities. And we've seen that, you know, we've seen that with managers who've used our product, who really liked it, moved on to another 2 or 3 jobs and took us with them, you know. So from that point of view, I think it is really important to think big at all times, because your idea is important, you're very passionate about it, but you want to bring it everywhere, right? And that's what the 2 guys in STATSports have done, and that's what we've got behind them to support that and continue that.
I suppose the benefit, Paul, of your business is that you're nimble on your feet and you can bring the product to them. Connaire, in terms of Warrenpoint Town, it has to be in Warrenpoint. Maybe could be more accessible as an area. But in terms of attracting players and making that big move that you say that you want to make, what do you need to do to make Warrenpoint itself attractive to players as well as sponsors?
Well, I suppose what will soon be unveiling will be our development plan for Milltown itself, which will be, you know, the facility enhancements, including hopefully a second pitch in the local area. These are very, very important. But Aoife touched on actually earlier on about the educational academy. That's certainly something that we are actively pursuing and developing outwards. That's going to attract, you know, maybe 16, 17-year-olds to the club. And then once you develop, you know, second coaching facilities and using partners like Paul there at STATSports, we're offering something more and better maybe than someone down the road or up the road, whatever way you want to look at it, is going to offer.
And at the other end of things, Aoife, there's an anonymous question in here. If someone wanted to get involved voluntarily with the club, we love you, whoever you are, who do I get in contact with and what roles are there available?
You can send me an email, and we have actually a lot of roles available, so we can tailor it around what suits the volunteer. And we don't want to take anyone on and expect them to do certain things that maybe they don't want to do. We want to work around the volunteers and let them offer whatever services they feel comfortable doing.
Good point. Good point. We have time for one more question, the question and answer. I'm not going to let everybody go until we get one more question, the question and answer. Conor, just back to you. We're nearly done now. But in terms of you as a business person as well, have you anything that you could say from a business point of view that you believe are the benefits of investing in sport?
Yeah. So I mean, Brian probably highlighted this better than what I will. You know, one, from a community aspect, attaching your brand to something that has value and hopefully sinks in with your core values as a business. But secondly, for me, networking, from my business perspective, being involved in Warrenpoint Town, the networking opportunities that I have got from it have really paid dividends for me. So definitely there's been a return for me in finding new partners in business. So I would encourage anyone to get involved on that basis alone, but certainly if you want to attach your brand or others in your local area, is the way to do it.
Aoife, we have a great last question for you. What is the lovely beer that the players get for man of the match?
It's from the Mourne Mountains Brewery. Big sponsors.
And who's in charge of that company?
It's a local company.
I wonder who that anonymous person that put that question in. Folks, let's just wrap up. I'm going to give you all a final say on everything we've been talking about today in terms of the this relationship between sport and business. Paul, some final thoughts?
Yeah, I just think it's really important for businesses to invest in sport, because sport's a great leveler across the board in everything we do, right? And when you get involved in sport, you get involved in people, and people drive everything. You know what I mean? Whether it's business, whether it's football teams, whether it's football clubs, whether it's volunteers doing that. So for me and for STATSports, it's about the people and continuing to keep that synergy between business and sport.
Just wait, is there any club that you would love to work with that you haven't worked with? And you look as if you've got all the big names.
Well, it'd be hard to single out one, Mark, you know what I mean? But certainly we continue on moving. And for us, it's about getting into different sports, right? You know, it's about getting into cricket, it's about getting into other things, you know. So, but certainly we'll continue to, nobody comes to mind, but obviously there's a lot of teams out there that we would still love to work with, right? And we'll keep all irons in the fire.
I was inviting you to say Everton, but we'll maybe not go there. But cricket's interesting because I'm a big cricket fan. I think it would have a lot of benefit, particularly for fielders. What do you think? Is that what you're saying to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, we work with India Cricket, Mark. So we've got the Indian cricket team, and we work with them. Obviously, they're playing England at the moment, or we're playing England. So that's a big area. It's a new area for us. We concentrate a lot on the bowlers at the moment because they get a lot of fatigue and there's a lot of wear and tear with them. certainly the fielders, speed, distance they cover, we do all that stuff as well.
Thank you, Paul. Really appreciate it. Aoife, final, the BBC, not that I'm working for the BBC today, I should have said that at the start. We don't do advertising, but what would you say to anyone who's out there is thinking, Warrenpoint, they're on the up, I might put my money where my mouth is?
I would definitely say go for it. I think we're sort of viewed as wee Warrenpoint, but we've got big ideas for the club, and with your help, we can definitely get there and take you along the journey with us.
Connaire, I did say wee Warrenpoint earlier on. Do you like that? I mean, can you roll with that? Is that a good brand, or do you want to shake that tag?
Personally, no, I don't like it, to be honest with you, because we're no longer wee Warrenpoint. Might have been many years ago. As Aoife said, we're a club with big ambition now. We're up there. We're beating Linfield, Mark. Did I say that before? No, certainly. Look, we're definitely still the underdog, but I don't think we.
I think we've lost you a little bit, Connaire. Maybe you've lost me. We'll call you Whopper Warrenpoint from now on. Brian Reid, you have a foot in both camps here. Final thought from you in terms of investing in sport from a business point of view in the Newry area.
I would say it, yeah, definitely. It opens you up to the network, and I want to say thanks to the Newry Chamber for helping us support this today. And it's opened us up to a network. They've been very supportive to us as a business, DELI Lights, and if you get involved with Warrenpoint Town, let's hope that it opens you up to a bigger network of other businesses in the area. So yeah, I would definitely encourage anybody to get in contact, whether large or small. Just get in contact, give us a shout.
And score prediction for tomorrow?
3-0 Warrenpoint.
Glentoran?
No, 3-0 Warrenpoint.
Remember where you heard. Put your money on Connaire, Brian, Aoife and Paul. Thank you all very much indeed. I've really enjoyed this. I hope you've all got something from this session, and it's opened up possibilities in your minds about future partnerships, not just with Warrenpoint Town, but maybe some other clubs out there. Equally, there are lessons for every business about how football clubs are going, and hope it's been an insight into how things have really changed. Equally, there are lessons for every business about how changed. Now, this is one of many sessions run by Newry Chamber of Commerce and Trade. It's a very busy and active chamber, as we know, run by Colin Shannon, the man who reminded me to turn my mic on earlier. Colin, thank you to you and your team, to Jessica and Jarlath for helping set up this event and so many other events which are keeping us going. And there is another one coming up. I'm back on the 10th of March with the Cross-Border Conference in conjunction with the Dundalk Chamber, and we'll have contributions that day from Taoiseach Micheál Martin and the Finance Minister Conor Murphy. We touched on women's football this afternoon as part of International Women's Day. The Chamber's guest speaker on the 5th of March, was only a couple of weeks away, is Deborah Soroman. Look her up, a very successful businesswoman with a very, very inspirational backstory. Anyway, folks, I really appreciate your company. I've enjoyed it. I've maybe talked too much, but at least you can hear me, unlike at the very beginning. Have a good weekend. I know none of us can go out much, but we'll all be watching Warrenpoint Town beat Glentoran 3-0. Remember where you heard it first. Have a good weekend. Thanks for your company.
Thanks all.